calculus class. It's block 3. I come in late and I sit in my seat. I'm always late, cause I come from south, and I get yelled at cause I can't shut my mouth. But hey, Mrs. Broder, sitting there, you look great. I like your hair. You're about to learn from what you see. A little pre-calc as I'm checking on my tray.
Hi, I'm Ella, not Steve Urkel, even though my initials are ERK, so they make that thing. Here to tell you about the unit circle. A unit circle is a radius of 1. It's the center of the origin. It's super fun. It's got quadrants, radians, and degrees. I'm talking 30, 45, and 60 degrees. In the circle, we got cosine and sine. Trig functions we use all the time. Sine of t equals y. 360 degrees equals 2 pi.
To find exact values of functions and stuff, we use sum and difference formulas. I'm talking sine, cosine, cosine, sine. Cosine, cosine, sine, sine. Tan, tan, 1 tan, tan. Pre-calc helps me to become a man.
Hey, Mrs. Broder, I'm gonna be swooping down to teach you about factoring by grouping. To do this, you group the terms of common factor. It's real simple. You don't need a protractor. From there, you factor out the GCF, and with the remaining term, there's only 2 left.
Got an incomplete triangle? No big deal. We'll figure it out. Let's give it a feel. If the hypotenuse is missing as a length of the side, we use the Pythagorean theorem all over the outside.
Mrs. Broder helps me find the bearing of a boat. I love this class. It kicks asymptotes, because our grades were the line, but never touch 0. With our test corrections, Broder, you're my hero.
Before I go and take a slumber, let me school you real quick on imaginary numbers. The unit I equals square root negative 1, and I squared is just negative 1. I do not care what you heard. We could use these in complex numbers. In the form a plus BEI, a is real, but it's not a big deal, because when we use them in operations, this class makes me tired. I need a vacation.
Now we've had some fun, but it's time to go. It's been real. You've been a bro. Durr. But the rest of the year, we'll just take naps unless we get an A on this Pre-Calc Rap.
Yeah!
Mrs. Broder.
Mrs. Broder.
Mrs. Broder.
Mrs. Broder.
I love Mrs. Broder.
Mrs. Broder.
I love Mrs. Broder.
Mrs. Broder.
Mrs. Broder.
Mrs. Broder.
Mrs. Broder.
Broder!
Mrs. Broder.